Emergency.
Oh my God, my friend's just gotten in an accident and I need help. They need help now.
How many people are injured, can you tell?
It looks like there's 4 trapped inside the cars. Andy's on the ground. He's not moving.
In 2011, distracted driving crashes killed 3,300 people and nearly 400,000 were seriously injured. We know that at least 12% of those crashes involved a driver using a cell phone.
And we're on the Central Ave, which is a 4-lane divided road, and we pull up alongside a vehicle, and I actually saw a female. She had the phone crooked up to her shoulder, and she had a second phone that she was texting. So she was on a cell phone and texting on a second cell phone at the same time while driving. I could not believe it.
Drivers talking on cell phones are 4 times more likely to get into crashes serious enough to injure themselves. Drivers who are texting are at 23 times greater risk for a crash than drivers who are not distracted. Sending and receiving a text takes a driver's eyes from the road for an average of 4.6 seconds. That's the equivalent at 55 miles per hour of driving the length of an entire football field blindfolded.
You just drive around out there and you look and you see a lot of people are still texting and driving and using cell phones and doing a lot of other things that are a distraction. I mean, when I talk to young kids about driving, it's it's multitasking in and of itself, just operating a vehicle. When you have to think about everything you're doing inside a vehicle, you're adjusting the mirrors, the radio, the heat, the air conditioner, checking out signs outside the vehicle, looking at other drivers, what they're doing, staying in between your lane, and then you add, texting or on a cell phone or some other distraction. It's a recipe for disaster.
At any given daylight moment across the United States, approximately 660,000 drivers are using cell phones or manipulating electronic devices while driving. That's an estimated 9% of the vehicles whose drivers were using some type of phone, either handheld or hands-free, in the typical daylight moment.
11% of all drivers under the age of 20 involved in fatal crashes were reported as distracted at the time of the crash. The largest proportion of cell phone use leading to fatalities involved drivers from 30 to 39. While these numbers represent a significant number of people who were unnecessarily killed or injured, we also know the data may not state the true size of the problem, since the identification of distraction and its role in the crash by law enforcement can be very difficult. When we note use of cell phone in crash reports, that includes talking or listening to a cell phone, dialing or texting on a cell phone, or other activities such as navigating or surfing the internet. Cell phone use while driving is more difficult to detect than, say, not wearing your seatbelt. Drivers who use their cell phone behind the wheel do so sporadically, so it's hard to measure through traditional observational survey. NHTSA estimates that 5% of drivers nationwide are using handheld cell phones while driving at any time during the day. And 40% of American teens admit they've been in a car when a driver used a cell phone in a way that put people in danger.
And I think that distracted driving is very underrated, in the state of New York and probably throughout the country, because unless it's witnessed by someone who sticks around after the accident and then reports to the officer that, that person was texting or on the phone when the crash happened, we don't know. And for us, unless it's a very serious or fatal accident, that's when we go to, subpoena the phone records, if we do find a cell phone somewhere in the car.
Absolutely. I believe there's definitely an underreporting of accidents, and no one wants to admit to it after an accident occurs, that it's their fault because they were texting. It's often hard to identify if the person was using their phone or distracted driving. It is something that we look for when we do accident investigation. We often, if it's serious enough, we'll get phone records and try to match up whether they were distracted by the phone or not. It's definitely something we look for in all our investigations.
We wanted to identify best strategies for reducing distracted driving crashes and gaining compliance with cell phone and texting laws. There were 2 demonstration projects in April of 2010, one in Syracuse, New York, and the other in Hartford, Connecticut. The projects were modeled after Click It or Ticket. There was a period of earned media, a period of paid media with an enforcement message, and a defined period of enforcement with evaluations at all stages. In New York, the law enforcement partners, including the New York State Police, Syracuse Police Department, and the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office. Each jurisdiction was able to select enforcement strategies tailored to their community. In Hartford, they preferred a spotter technique where an officer observed violations while standing on the side of the roadway and radioed ahead to a second vehicle. Patrols moved between locations to take advantage of traffic patterns in known high-risk areas.
The first thing we look at is a safe location for the officers. I try to find a spot where the violators will not see the officers until they round a curve. So what we do is we use a 4-man, 4 officers, static post in a parking lot, and then up the street we have the spotter and unmarked vehicle, and then they call out the violators to the officers. They have cones set up in the road to slow traffic down, and they just step out and wave them into the parking lot.
We have a safe location for the officers on the side of the road where they can protect them while they're writing the summons. So we often use the same areas that we do for seatbelt enforcement, DWI enforcement.
On our interstate and controlled access highways, including toll roads like the New York State Thruway, one of the methods we've used is to simply have a uniformed trooper at the toll plaza near the toll booths. They're able to monitor drivers from just a few feet away at a slower speed and can easily detect a person using a cell phone or texting.
Some of the other lessons learned from the demonstration project were that texting offenders often commit other traffic violations, such as lane departure, traveling too slowly, or weaving on high-speed highways, providing additional cues to officers. The use of spotters on overpasses and elevated roadways and the use of taller SUVs and trucks were effective in identifying drivers manipulating electronic devices. At night, officers can look for the light coming from the cell phone as a clue for texting violations, and unmarked vehicles may be an advantage when using roving patrol. When using any of these techniques, be sure to follow your state and local laws.
At the end of the project, driving while using handheld cell phones dropped 57% in Hartford and 32% in Syracuse. Drivers who were texting while driving declined 72% in Hartford and 32% in Syracuse. In Syracuse, they preferred roving patrol using higher vantage points, such as from an SUV and using unmarked vehicles. Similar to Hartford, Syracuse's roving patrols targeted their high-risk and high-volume areas. Both agencies prepared citation holders that officers used to hold the ticket and provide specific information about the state's cell phone laws, the amount of the fine, and the risk associated with distraction.
In April 2014, during Distracted Driving Awareness Month, NHTSA will conduct its first nationwide media campaign, not only to educate the public, but to warn them of enforcement consequences. Many of our law enforcement partners are already using some of NHTSA's distracted driving messaging. Social norming messages alert the public about the dangers of distracted driving and issues the call to action to put it down.
But I think we're on the right track with this. It's like anything else; it's got to be attacked at every angle we possibly can.
And we really, as law enforcement officers, need to educate people. It's not always about writing a ticket, but it is about educating people. And I think that's going to start getting through more and more, especially in New York State, since now it's a 5-point violation.
Please visit distraction.gov, our portal for the public to access sample laws, the NHTSA strategic plan, and information on distracted driving research. The site also has resources that public health and traffic safety professionals can use to combat distracted driving in their communities. Whether you're a law enforcement officer, parent, school official, or employer, there's information at distraction.gov that can help you combat distracted driving and save lives.
Two-car MVA. Report is 4 people trapped, 1 male subject on the ground not moving.